ventris tui, Jesus. Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Jesus. Sancta Maria,
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm so grateful to be with you here today on Diwali, honoring the light. I'm going to light a candle in honor of Diwali. A candle from Chartres Cathedral, and place it here. As our world burns from greed and the dying patriarchal clutch grip on power and dominance that is taking the lives of thousands of innocent people, children, and the rising temperatures, the global, unprecedented global heat, unmatched in the last 125,000 years. Let us take a moment to sense our beloved Great Mother, Earth, with our feet, and hold in one hand the heartbreak, the horror, the pain, and the suffering in our world, and not turn away from it. And in the other hand, hold beauty, the beauty around us, the beauty in us, the warmth and love in this community and countless other communities, the courage, the goodness in people, in ourselves, and gratitude for how blessed we are to be safe, to have a roof above our head, and to not have to worry that in the next minute we or our loved ones may be killed. And bring the two together, holding both, holding the paradox of being alive in this wild, amazing, shattering, blessed mystery that is life. Dedicating ourselves to beauty, to raising our frequency into love and maintaining that frequency. And tending to the sanctuary of our hearts, letting it flourish into a garden amidst the flames, as the great Andalusian mystic Ibn Arabi said, a garden amidst the flames. So we can be a refuge to those who are unsettled, and together expand the love with all who are doing the same, to the extent that it dissolves the hate, the aggression, the discord. For we are truly at a fork in the road moment for humanity. Do we choose love or do we choose fear? Thank you.
Thank you, Banafsheh, for your extraordinarily beautiful and nuanced invocation. Welcome, everyone, to our Chartres Community call for the month of November. We are indeed in the time of Diwali. That's the Hindu festival of lights. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, but you've probably seen the various photographs of the Indians throwing different colored powders into the air and on each other, and just this exuberance of all the colors of the rainbow. That's Diwali. And so it's in that spirit as the year gathers its darkness in the Northern Hemisphere for us to come together today. What we're going to do is start with an update from me about what's going on here in Washington. You can see my background. This is my office. It's just nestled right by the Supreme Court of the United States and one of the Senate office buildings, and across the street is the U.S. Capitol. This is part of the Methodist building, and it is the only civilian building in the entire federal enclave. And so it's very interesting for me to be here in this particular location. This building actually was the site of the original U.S. Capitol that was built shortly after the Revolutionary War. And then during the War of 1812, the British attacked Washington and burnt the Capitol down. And then years later, it was rebuilt, and it is in its current location. But where I am is a place of deep history as part of the United States. And my little apartment is about a 10-minute walk away, just down First Street. You pass the Supreme Court on one side and the U.S. Capitol on the other side, and the Library of Congress and more congressional office buildings. So I'm just nested in the center of Washington, D.C., and the government of the United States. My mission, as you all know, is to direct the Washington operations of the New Paradigm Institute that is focused on ensuring that the legislation now before the U.S. Congress, having been very recently at the end of July passed by the Senate Armed Services Committee, and then the full Senate. And then it was passed by the House, but with a different version of the bill. So now they're in reconciliation. And the bill mandates the creation of a 9-person committee that will oversee the congressionally established office in December of 2022, last year, signed by President Biden, that sets up a special office called the All-Domain Anomalous Research Office to gather all this information from the last 75 years of the Pentagon, the intelligence community, the CIA, the Energy Department, various corporations, to turn all the information that they've gathered during this time about the UFO phenomenon to this research office. And then this 9-person committee of eminent Americans, Nobel laureates, world-class scientists and political leaders, diplomats, national security and intelligence personnel will be nominated by the president, in this case, President Biden, and confirmed by the Senate, just like ambassadors and nominees for the Supreme Court, et cetera, are. It's a very, very important mission that this committee has. And then that we will embark on a 7-year, what they're calling in the legislation, controlled disclosure plan, so that bit by bit, the evidence that's been accumulated by the United States government and its various agencies will be released to the public. And that will include as testimony before Congress and various whistleblowers has indicated. Apparently there's upwards of 9, maybe a dozen flying objects that have been retrieved by the US government. There's been a dozen or so, maybe more, bodies of aliens, non-human intelligences, as they're called, that have been also retained. Apparently one was actually caught alive and captured and lived for some time buried deep in one of the bunkers in the Area 51 by Groom Lake there in Nevada, north of Las Vegas. So there's a lot of evidence indicating incontrovertibly that humanity is not alone, that extraterrestrial intelligences are real. They've been on planet Earth for some time, and there is specific hard evidence indicating the aircraft that many of them have used and the various remains of non-human intelligences that were in the aircraft when they were downed either by military fire or an accident. One doesn't know that information, of course. And so we're going down into the home stretch. In the next month, by early December, the bill will be passed. There's an attempt now on the part of the what they call the Majestic 12, that group of people that were established by President Truman right after the war to oversee the gathering of the evidence and the protection of the evidence in classified categories. And they have kept it as secret as they have because the US military, working with the major defense contractors, has been seeking as best they can to reverse engineer the technology for military purposes so that the United States can develop a mastery of military technology that will give the United States supremacy over the entire world. And so that's one reason why the Majestic 12, the Legacy Group, the Deep State, whatever you want to call it, has been so determined to keep all the information public, but it's now bubbling out. There's been so many sightings. There have been so many witnesses. Been so many people in the military that have had experiences. Many of them have testified at the National Press Club through the Disclosure Project, or actually in congressional testimony. So I'm here right in the thick of it as we're coming down to the wire of arguably the most important moment in all of human history. Legislation by a major government establishing the reality that extraterrestrial intelligences exist. And just think about that for a moment. That humanity is about ready to enter its ET moment, where collectively, all at the same time, we're going to look up in the realization that not only is the Earth not the center of the universe, which was the Copernican revolution, but that humanity is not the apex of evolution. And just as the Earth is a small, insignificant speck in relationship to the sun, in relationship to its galaxy and trillions of other galaxies, so what is now about to dawn on humanity is that humanity itself is not the apex of creation. There's in fact life forms, thousands, possibly millions, even billions of years more advanced, sophisticated, and capacious than we are. And how the human species, in light of this information, possibly with even more extraordinary contact with these extraterrestrial beings, how we begin the process of awareness, contact, communication, negotiation, is the next phase of human evolutionary development. And I have to say, I've done a lot of things in my life, as most of you know, but this task of being here in the belly of the beast at this moment, when the government that's doing the most damage and destruction around the world is also highly paradoxically the government that is releasing the most important piece of information in all of US history and world history, is an extraordinary fulcrum to be in, and to be inside the federal enclave. Just psycho-emotionally for me, is extremely exciting and rewarding. I'm full of gratitude day by day as I walk by the Supreme Court in the US Capitol, knowing that all the mishigash and, you know, turbulence and machinations of the congressional turbulence is playing itself out, and the Supreme Court is making rulings, and there's lots of demonstrations. There's a very heavy police presence every day. And when there's big demonstrations, as there's been about Gaza and what Israel's doing to the Gazans, the police presence is even more coercive and observable. The Senate office buildings and the congressional office buildings are shut down, and the Capitol building is shut down. And, you know, it's really something to be here. This next 30 days into about this time in December will determine whether at the 11th hour, the Congress of the United States has the stature and the moral maturity to pass this legislation and do so in a way that enables that controlled disclosure plan to unfold commencing January 1, 2024. And so I will keep giving people, all of you, reports. I'm deeply grateful for each and every one of you. I would have never dreamed that I would have this kind of an opportunity till it was offered to me by Danny Sheehan of the New Paradigm Institute, an old friend that I've known from our Harvard days in the 1970s. And so here I am, and I will keep everybody posted. What we want to do now is to turn our attention to some of the aspects of what we're going to be exploring in Teotihuacán when next June, during the week of the summer solstice, we'll be gathering in Mexico, not in France, and going to the Pyramids of Teotihuacán, which are considered, along with the pyramids in Giza, to be the great pyramids built by ancient civilizations on our planet. And at the heart of the pyramidal structure is the vibrational reality and mystery of number, of geometry, and musical harmony. So we're very pleased today to have our resident wizard and magician, Calen Rayne, who all of you will know from going to Chartres and various times when Calen has been presenting. He knows an extraordinary amount about these various aspects of our mystical reality. And so I want to welcome Calen to the program. He's going to give a brief presentation with a PowerPoint. And then we're happy, both Calen and I, if you have any questions about the UFO issue, or on the vibrational harmony issue, we'll be glad to take those questions for the balance of the hour. So thank you, everyone. Welcome to Humanity Rising, or rather our Chartres Community Call. And Calen, welcome to the program.
My internet has gone out a couple of times, so hopefully I will make it through this one. And I have to set it back up again, Gayar, I'm sorry. I just shared screen.
Now we just need to get full screen.
Talk to me, Gayar.
He may have stepped away, but you can do it with what you've got, but if you can get to full screen,
I know.
that would be the best. But if you're having internet issues, the full screen may be problematic. You may want to just continue with what you've got, because people can see this.
You can see the vibration of consciousness?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's.
So I'd go with what we've got.
I'll go with that until he wanders back in. Sorry.
Yeah. Go for it.
Here we go. From the Kabbalah, wind is the second sphere of creation spiraling into existence. It is known as Chokmah, literally hollowed out, also wisdom. The Creator's breath became wind and hollowed out a space in no thing, in which there now arose the possibility for something. This is the beginning of what you experience as wisdom. Wind and Hokmah are therefore symbolic of the very initial phase of your genesis from the realm of no thing. Hildegard of Bingen tells us that all that God created was already in God's presence before the world began, before the beginning of time. We must immerse ourselves in the mystery of primordial energy unfolding the story of creation around us. There is engraved within the sacred and mystic beginning a secret and most holy design, and upon this secret the world is built. Our role is to contribute to the ongoing birthing of our cosmos and to acknowledge and understand that we are part of an unfolding spiritual story, born from sound, and add our unique voices to the chorus. Wisdom wrote us individually into this matrix of reality. We must resonate with the vibration of primordial wisdom because there is a pattern of sound that seeks to use us, and we must be able to vibrate at its level. If we are in harmony with spirit, a veil of illusion could be lifted and spiritual order restored. The mind of the infinite is looking for a channel, a frequency through which to release compassion now more than ever. And we must tune our frequency to that channel, to that divine voice, and develop the means to birth compassion. Time.
Calen,
Yes.
the slides aren't keeping up with.
No, I haven't started slides yet.
Oh, okay.
This is just the introduction, sorry. Time and beginning are simultaneous. The words Bereshit bara Elohim are often translated as in the beginning, God created. A more precise translation of the Hebrew is by means of beginning, God created. Creation is the stuff of beginnings. There is no beginning unless there is something that begins. Wisdom is said to have been created before beginnings. This shows the limits of language, for in fact, this cannot be. If she, wisdom, is created, then there is a beginning. What then is this wisdom who was created before the things of creation? She is the pattern of creation, the way of God's unfolding from eternity into time. And from Proverbs chapter 8, we hear wisdom's proclamation, I raise my voice to all mankind. The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works. Before his deeds of old, I was appointed from eternity, from the beginning, before the world began. My work is done on a primordial grid, one dimension removed from the real world. My training from the Himalayas is in the nameless religion, also known as the patterns of heaven and earth and sacred conventions. So the patterns of heaven and earth are the wisdom, primordial wisdom that we speak of here. And the sacred conventions are the methods that I use to work with it. When one visits a sacred site, there is a genesis point with a connection to the primordial wisdom grid. We sometimes go there in our dreams, during meditation, or maybe on a walk in the woods. The first form energy takes when rising from primordial grid is a form of a tetrahedron, basically a pyramid. I was asked to work on energetics of the Cahokia Mound Pyramid Complex near St. Louis and the Pyramid Complex at Tikal in Guatemala, and hope to share some of those techniques at Teo. One can open a genesis point anywhere and connect to a primordial wisdom matrix. One might refer to it as universal consciousness or a number of other names. Today, I will try to explain my theory on how 466 hertz is the vibration of consciousness and how important it is to dwell in equanimity and birth compassion. Erwin Laszlo, from ancient insight, the universe we observe and inhabit is a secondary product of the energy sea that was there before there was anything there at all. Hindu and Chinese cosmologies have always maintained that the things and beings that exist in the world are a concretization or distillation of the basic energy of the cosmos, descending from its original source. The physical world is a reflection of energy vibrations from more subtle worlds that are in turn are reflections of still more subtle energy fields. The fact that there is a beginning or an end is just a concept seeded into our mind by society. We're constant, continuous, infinite energy, and energy never dies, it transforms. Nikola Tesla, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So here we have sort of a pyramid sitting above a person lying on the ground. And this, in my mind, this is an image of how everything is connected. In 1973, about 50 years ago, I had gone to a funeral in Kentucky where we had dug my relative's grave and then lowered them into the ground with ropes and then tossed dirt on them. And then I was one of the people that covered the grave up. And from this, I got the idea that I could probably form a deeper connection with Earth and some understanding of the transition process if I dug a grave myself. So I went back to Indiana. I was running an abandoned farm, sort of an abandoned farm out in the middle of nowhere. And I dug an open grave in a cornfield. And for the next 9 months, I spent anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day lying in this position. I didn't have the tetrahedron above me, but the fact that the first form energy takes when it comes out of the ground is in the form of a tetrahedron, in all likelihood, I had an energetic pyramid sitting above me. And these were sort of the connections I had. So the pharaohs, when they're buried in the pyramids, obviously are in a pyramid. And I think when we go to Teo, this will be similar. If once we enter into the pyramids at Teo, if we can get deep within them, you will have an ability to experience probably what I felt when I dug the open grave. You'll be able to connect. That's one of the reasons for the pyramid complexes. They're to transition, to move past time and space and allow you to connect with the greater wisdom. A central theme in the Zohar is that everything in the universe is connected to everything else, and that every part of creation is a constant interaction and interplay with every other part. Underlying this cosmic dance, there is hidden order and meaning. And in my work, the hidden order and meaning is in this primordial grid of wisdom. We are working with the tonality of the cosmos and the belief that there were different sounds associated with gods, goddesses, plants, and all aspects of our perceived world. Pythagoras first worked with sounds, then brought in geometric shapes, and then numbers. Numbers might be associated with frequency and vibration as related to the sound and shapes. There is evidence that many of the ancient temples and monuments in various parts of the world, and this would include Teo, have one thing in common: 110 hertz sound that is engineered into their structures. This was part of the PAIR project, which is now housed at Broughton. I'm getting ready to leave on Thursday for the Science and Consciousness Conference. 110 hertz is known to represent the human pitch. Buddhist and Hindu chant their mantras in the same frequency. Archaeologists indicate that these chambers were used for rituals and chanting. I wondered about the 110 hertz and why that frequency might be the human pitch. So I turned to mathematics, which is our topic this year. The final iron age of Kali is 1 yuga, 6,048 years. Divide that by a Fibonacci 55 number, you have 110. Take the diameter of the Earth at 7,920 miles, divide by a harmonic fifth of 72, and we have 110. So this frequency can be found and identified in both time and space. It would appear that the number of syllables that can be spoken in one breath is a natural length for haiku. A little known fact derived from Buddhist scripture offers a somewhat similar notion for our 17-syllable structure. According to the Abhidhamma, or metaphysical section of the Pali Canon, the longest process of consciousness caused by sense perceptions consists of 17 thought instants, each briefer than a lightning flash. Is it not significant in the light of this that a haiku should be composed of exactly 17 syllables? Mathematics is a place where you can do things which you can't do in the real world. The next step in our mathematical journey is to divide the 17 syllables, what might be considered as the breath of our cosmos, by the 110 hertz, which might be considered to be the frequency of the voice of the cosmos. And when you divide that, you end up with 0.154545454 on into infinity. This I consider to be the ratio of a cosmological resonating vibration of sorts that is embedded in the fabric of the quantum hologram of information that flows from past to future. What Robert Lawler would refer to as an irrational number that makes the unknown known, the unmanifest manifest, the unreal real, and our connection to the underlying frequency of cosmological consciousness possible. Again, the primordial grid. Then we divide a harmonic fifth of a circle, or 72, by this cosmological resonating vibration to determine the possible frequency necessary to open access to our information field. And when you do that, you end up with 465.88, which is 466. The 466 is in a Rayne set, a blend of Fibonacci and Lucas numbers that generate both the 110 number and the number 555, which I associate with a fifth dimensional level of awareness. So my theory is that a 144 hertz Fibonacci frequency circle and a 322 hertz Lucas frequency circle, Lucas is a number that's a variation of Fibonacci numbers, merged to create a 466 hertz Rayne vibrational mandorla that births and contains any missing frequencies that are necessary for our accessing higher levels of consciousness waiting to be birthed from the void. I refer to this as a twin particle system with zero spin. And this number came from a class I was taking with Robert Lawler, where he mentioned that the numbers 16, 26, and 42 appeared and no one really understood why. So what I did in my little notebook that I still have is I wrote down Fibonacci numbers, the basic, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 11, 13, 24, or 13, 21, 34, 55 that most people are aware of, and the Lucas numbers that start with 2 and 1. So it's 2, 1, 3, 4, 7, 11, 18, 29, 47, and on like that. And when I put them down beside each other, I simply added the alternating Fibonacci and Lucas numbers, and 3 of the first numbers I came up with were 16, 26, and 42. So I thought I might be onto something, so I kept going, and I ended up with the 110 hertz number, which I thought was very important. And then I continued on and I got to the 555, which would be a fifth dimensional, sort of like 5 times the 110, 111 number. So it got to a fifth dimensional awareness. So I called them the Rayne numbers because I searched everywhere, and this was 12 years ago. And as far as I know, no one had ever blended Fibonacci and Lucas numbers to come up with a third set of numbers. So I just put my name on it. Rigpa, non-conceptual thought-free original wakefulness. This is a Buddhist term. And going into meditation, I think that this is another variation of the primordial grid, this primordial wisdom, where when you can get to a certain vibration, you can get into a meditation process, and you will enter a state of Rigpa, non-conceptual thought-free original wakefulness. I always hypothesized that the reincarnated lamas, sort of the Dalai Lama, the Panchen Lama, or people like that, when they were in a room and they were picking objects that were owned by someone else, my theory on it was that the person that was able to do that, the child that was able to do that, was one that could immediately enter a state of Rigpa, or non-conceptual thought-free original wakefulness, where they would be able to come into vibration or resonance with the previous Rinpoche and be able to resonate with the objects because they were in the state of Rigpa and were resonating with the Rinpoche, and obviously then would resonate with the objects that he would have held. I found this interesting. I have a statue that the Dalai Lama held against his forehead when he was still on the throne at the palace when he was a child. And I carried it to Oklahoma because the Panchen Lama was walking one of my labyrinths out there. And he was at that time the director of the Dharmasala monastery where the Dalai Lama is. And I was allowed to go in and sit with him for about a half hour. And one of the things I did was I handed him the statue and I said, this is the story I got from the person that gave this to me. And he put it against his forehead and he said, yes, Tenzin is here and now so am I. And he handed it back to me. So in theory, I have a small statue in my room with the 700 ritual objects that has the current Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama, their vibration in that. And it's very potent. I have another one that's a facsimile of it, and you can tell the difference when you hold the two objects. And if you're able to get into the state of consciousness, this is what I see that opens up. When you're in the primordial wisdom grid, there's a connection to what we call the real world. And there's this tube that you can wander back and forth in. So you can spend some time in the primordial wisdom and gather the information you need and get yourself centered and everything, and then come back to what we call the real world and participate. And this is what I see that happens when we step back into the primordial grid, is that we're bathed in all of this information and vibration and resonance and just from beginning to the end of time, and we're able to assimilate and gather what we need to move forward as a vehicle of compassion and giving birth to a better world. And I have a couple of images of what it would be like for that transference of energy. It forms a torus. And then when I'm working in this grid, I usually work with the tree of life pattern, the Kabbalah tree of life pattern. And there are, normally people show 10 sephira, and the 11th sephira is Dot or Ein Sof. I was watching a Humanity Rising call about the Urantia book, I think it was a week or so ago, and Jim made the comment, Ein Sof is beyond space and time. And I believe that Ein Sof and Rigpa are both places that are beyond space and time, and they are primordial wisdom. So this is a plain view of the Kabbalah tree of life, and you can see the 10 sephira, and then just below the Kether there, Keter is the sort of invisible one, but you can almost make out that it says Dot on it, or Ein Sof. The Hebrew word Kabbalah has two distinct meanings, to reveal and to receive. When the primordial nested geometries arrange themselves in a pattern similar to the Kabbalah tree of life configuration, they were able to receive information from each other and then to reveal an underlying pattern of cosmic order. And these are paintings from my dissertation at Wisdom, symbolizing the original nested geometries that were in place when our known world was birthed. So in my dissertation, I have these 11 paintings and an explanation of each one, and each one is connected to a 5-minute singing bowl meditation from, I had about 25 singing bowls and went into the studio. So each of the 11 nested geometries has a specific sound meditation that goes along with it. In Kabbalah, the Sephira Dot represents the location where the other 10 Sephira and the tree of life are united as one. Here, all Sephira exist in their perfected state of infinite sharing. For Jewish sages, Dot roughly translates as knowledge or consciousness. Knowledge usually means knowledge about things outside of oneself. Dot is the knowledge of the one who is knowing, the I. And for me, the one who is knowing is this primordial wisdom that's embedded in the primordial grid. And it's something you can experience at all these various sacred sites around the world. And from Pythagoras, there's a geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacing of the spheres. And here the actually shows all 11 of them in color. And you can see that they're numbered. So if I'm working with a grid, I'm using all of these numbers as well as the Hebrew mathematics that are attached to the various words when I'm forming my algorithms. So teachings from ancient Jewish mysticism relate how at any time there are 36 people on the planet known as Lamed Vavniks or Nistarim, who uphold and create an equilibrium for all of our suffering. Similar, I suppose, to the Buddhist concept of bodhisattvas. Nistarims provide the equilibrium in a whirlpool of humility without knowledge of themselves or who they are or their importance to the world. If one dies or is revealed, then another takes their place. One should indeed recognize the inherent worth and dignity of everyone, for we do not know who might be a Nistarim, and we do not know that we might not one day become one of them. And I believe I encountered one of these holy people on my own spiritual journey. In 1976, I was hired to manage Pinecrest, a small apartment complex at the Jewish Home for the Aged in San Francisco. So recent events have brought back a lot of memories. I have worked several years with teenagers at group treatment homes in Indiana, and now traded being a house parent to being the house grandkid. Quite a change. Some of the teenagers in Indiana were fond of their tattoos, and residents of Pinecrest also had their tattoos, but not ones they chose. My new family were Holocaust survivors who spent time in concentration camps, documented by the tattooed number on their forearm, yet another cruel chapter of World War II. I noticed early on that one gentleman who was a bit quirky seemed to be looked out for by the women at Pinecrest, who always made sure he had plenty to eat. There were only 2 men among the 20 residents, and I studied the Kabbalah with them in the evenings. This was my introduction to the Kabbalah, and I was able to spend a lot of time over that year plus, most evenings with a couple of Kabbalah scholars. He was taken care of because one of the women said, he is one of them. And when I asked what she meant, she said, he is Vavnik. There was one night about 3 o'clock in the morning when this particular gentleman had an episode, for lack of a better word, and I went to his room. And one of the things he did every morning was he would come to the breakfast table and say, today. And he would look at me and point his finger at me, and he would say, today. And I always wondered what that was about. So on that particular, like 3 o'clock in the morning, as I sat with him, I said, every morning you come and you point your finger at me and you say, today. And I always wondered what you meant by that. And he said, when he was in the concentration camp, they lined him up against a wall with his wife and his 3 children. And they shot his 3 children and his wife. And then they put a gun against his head and pulled it, an empty barrel, an empty chamber. And the officer looked him in the eye and said, I am going to let you live, and you will remember today for the rest of your life. So he said, the reason I say today is because today I am still alive and they live in my memory. So this image here is the fact that we are here to connect primordial wisdom and birth compassion in whatever path works for us. Because we may be a Nistarim, you may be in the presence of Nistarims that you will have no idea you're in the presence of them. And whatever path you need to follow that gets you to engage with primordial wisdom and an understanding that the universal consciousness is working through us, and our only purpose is to birth compassion and take care of other people. And this is one of the things that pilgrimages provide. They give you the opportunity to step out of the real world and step back into a framework or a place where you are able to engage with primordial wisdom and reach an understanding of the flow of primordial wisdom and be able to bring that into your lives and use that to birth compassion and make the world a better place. So that's one of the important parts of going to Teo next year, just like we go to Chartres. It's another place that has a different vibration, but it has a connection to the primordial grid. I've given you some of the math here. I can give you some more on Teo next year, but you need to put yourself in circumstances that you are able to engage with the primordial grid and draw from that inspiration and assistance to live a more fulfilling life and a life of service. And I'll close with one of my poems. There is enormous music rising from creation. Intelligent vibration allows my light to manifest as matter. I give in to rhythm of alchemy. I become a tapestry woven on a sacred loom by the divine mother's hands. I am embraced by cosmic energy in developing, dissolving darkness in a spacious, grounded calm of ancient wisdom and become one with the dance. Thank you.
Thank you, Calen. As always, that was such a powerful story that you told about the man who saw his wife and children shot right in front of him and then blank put up against his own head. What that must have done to his psyche. Wow, I can't even imagine what went through his whole body and consciousness at that moment, and obviously understand more deeply why he always says today, that's powerful, boy. That is a powerful story. Powerful story. So thank you for that. Now we've got just a few minutes left. Are there any questions that anyone wants to put in the chat for Calen or for me while we have just a few minutes? One question that I would have just to kick us off, Calen, is that 110 hertz as sort of the common denominator, as it were, for the realities that you were speaking of. Say more about that, because that would imply that well, you work out, just say more about the 110 hertz as sort of the standard of vibrational frequency.
The PAIR project, which we have everything at Broughton now, but the PAIR project, when they visited various sacred sites around the world, they set up all their equipment and it kept coming back at 110 or 111 hertz. It's never been odd to me that the Chartres labyrinth has 111 lunations around the outside, because the 111 is the number. So in the slideshow there, I tried to explain how mathematically you can find it in both space and time. If you take the diameter of the Earth divided by a harmonic fifth, you get 110. And if you take the length of a yuga divided by 55, you get 110. So mathematically, you can get to the numbers at the 110 in both time and space. And I think that could be, to me, that was once I Googled 110 hertz, when I first heard about this and read what it said about it, I'm thinking, okay, but can you get how do you get to 110 hertz mathematically? Because it's a number, so something must be there. So I started searching all over, and I figured out the yuga and the
Amazing.
diameter of the Earth thing to quantify
Amazing.
it. So when I go to any site, I'm finding the genesis point. I know that there's a 110 hertz voice coming out of it, but then I can run multiples of 110. So if I get to 880, that means there's 8 voices coming out of the site. So in the case of Maine, most places have 5 voices because it's a couple or 3 different Native American tribes that were in this area, and then the people that came from Europe. When you go to a place like Teo or Chartres somewhere, typically there's 8 voices, like 880 hertz. And there's a couple of spots on my land that resonate even higher than that. So it's just a number that you can use as a starting point.
Gotcha.
Because you want to get to a site that has a vibration of multiple 110s, so that you can download more voices from the cosmos, which will have different resonances and different frequencies and different information. So the first thing to do is identify where you can get to the 110, find out how many different ones are there.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you. Now that Shannon is wondering whether your slides will be available to people. You're on mute.
Georg and Bonifay both have the slideshow, so Georg can just send it out to the of them, send it out to the group.
Okay, maybe we'll include it in our next.
And I can slide it into WhatsApp.
Okay, yeah, put it in the WhatsApp. The Chartres Pilgrims. That's the best. Good, thank you. And then Raquel had a question for me about what we know about the intentions of the extraterrestrials and whether they're good or evil. And I would say that the jury is out. There seems to be mixed evidence. I would say that the folks in Damanhur, for example, who know a lot about the extraterrestrials, have indicated that there's a whole spectrum of intentions. My own evidence that sort of is just accumulating that I've been reading about is that we have been visited by multiple civilizations and groups of extraterrestrials over time. And some of them, if you read the stories of the Enuma Elish, the ancient Sumerian mythology about creation, they had coercive, exploitative intentions. And in fact, there was the division amongst themselves. So I think it's probably safe to say that just like there's light and dark dimensions, there's yin and there's yang, there's good and there's evil on planet Earth. It's not because we're the exception of the rest of the universe, but we're consistent with the rest of the universe. And that, of course, is a point that's made by the Urantia book. So as we go out to the galactic totality, we'll probably experience a range of intelligences, life forms, intentionalities with which we'll have to deal. Now, having said that, the other point that I would make is that in the last 75 years, thousands of people all over the world have experienced what they asserted was communication with the extraterrestrials. And what they report is that almost universally, the extraterrestrials are benign. They consistently say that humans have to stop killing each other and destroying the planet, that we've become a virus in terms of the overall planetary ecology, and most urgently and most importantly, we need to stop our nuclear weapons, because our nuclear weapons, if used, would not only destroy civilization, but put Earth evolution back hundreds, if not thousands of years, maybe more, depending on the magnitude of the nuclear conflagration. There's evidence, hard evidence, that in multiple places, not only in the United States, but in Russia, possibly China, UFOs have flown across military bases, and in particular nuclear weapons silos, and shut them down. So I would say, from what I know now, Raquel and everyone, I would say that the extraterrestrials are basically monitoring us. They may be advanced droids, if you think of Star Wars, observing us and communicating as universally as they can, that the human race is seriously out of alignment with itself and with the larger global ecology, and that urgently we need to get back into harmony, one with the other, and in synergy with Mother Nature. And that, in fact, is our destiny. And so I think if you think that thought and think about, why did Mother Nature, Mother Earth, create humanity? We're the only species that's capable of moving off the planet and becoming Earth's ambassadors to the larger galactic civilizations and empires that have been monitoring us, and which we now have to consciously encounter. In order to do that, we have to unite as a single species. And in uniting together, stopping all of our violence, stopping our violence against the earth, come into a synergistic relationship with the earth. Just think how empowered the earth will be if the crown of creation here on planet Earth, minuscule and insignificant in relation to the whole, would start to act as a single organism. And all the resilience and intelligence and adaptivity and creativity of a unified humanity, harmonized with natural systems. Just think what ambassadors we would be to the larger cosmos. And that, to me, is an animating notion, and for which we work at Humanity Rising and at Ubiquity University, and I know that most of you do as well. So that would be my short answer to that question, and that brings us basically to time. Calen, do you have any comment that you would like to make?
Yeah, this is a little exercise on the importance of today. Just close your eyes and think of the what you deem to be the most important day of your life. I'll give you a couple of seconds for that. Most people say this was the most important day of my life. And then the trick question on it is, what day did that replace that previously had been the most important day of your life? And that's how you get to the part of today. So that's an exercise you can do whenever you're thinking of how important something is. Always remember that it's probably today.
Thank you, Calen. Thank you, everyone. And that will bring us to a close for today. I want to just call down the energies of all of life, both on Earth and beyond Earth, all the hierarchy of intelligences and beings, and in particular call down to our poor, conflicted, alienated, and lost species, the compassion, the benevolence, the guidance of intelligences not our own. So that at this moment of acute duress, where all over the world, conflict and suffering and disharmony prevail. Those of us who are carrying the light in the spirit of Diwali will be empowered to shine the light in the darkness with such compassionate illumination that people's hearts are transformed. And even if by only a little, as a result of our intentions today, the world becomes a better place. I love all of you. We'll see you again next month, where we'll have a special session on Teotihuacán and what we can expect for that. And in fact, we'll be accentuating with Anine, if you remember Anine from Chartres, who just wrote a masterwork on Mary Magdalene. We're going to explore the divine sacred feminine as it's refracted through Mary Magdalene and the sacred feminine of Teotihuacán. So that'll be December on our Chartres community calls. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much. Blessings on your day.